Having qualified as a pilot 3 years ago, Captain Guy Richardson is responsible for ensuring that any new pilots are able to deal with the dangers of flying in Papua.
It's on its day. When all the challenges come together, Papua can just really just be overwhelming.
Today, Guy's mentoring 25-year-old Croatian Stjepan. It's only his second day behind the controls in the dangerous skies of Papua.
Well, you know how they say, takeoffs are optional, landings are mandatory.
Co-pilot Stjepan's been flying with Susi Air for less than a year.
We're keeping a close eye on him, that he's happy, and yeah, it'll be his first time into all these new strips.
It's gonna be a long day, just one of those days in Susi Air.
They're flying passengers from the remote island of Biak to the town of Manokwari, 130 miles away. They deal with isolated communities, which means their passengers are often unprepared for the experience.
Papua is one of the most remote and definitely the most challenging places we fly to. It's like the final frontier.
10 minutes into the flight, they hit a problem.
Okay, control, what does he want?
Water, can I give him yours?
Why does he want water?
I don't know, he's spilling it all over himself. He should go back, perhaps. Indonesia 6.
What's wrong with him?
Now, Romeo Alpha. Kembali?
Kenapa now? No. Stop doing that. We don't have on our aircraft any flight attendants, obviously. I mean, we are the flight attendants as well as the pilots, so it's a real concern when a passenger's agitated.
Hang on, what's up with this guy?
This guy's pretty crazy, isn't he?
It's an open cockpit. He can just reach over, grab the controls, or assault one of us.
What the hell now?
Hey, put the belt on. Okay, do what I say then. Take control again. Take control.
I have control.
Mate, put your belt on now.
What the hell is that idiot doing?
We're really worried that he's gonna disturb like the other passengers or maybe assault one of them or ourselves, which would be the worst case scenario. So we've got to return back to Biak now.
Flaps 20.
Yeah.
And I clap
Traffic here, Dixon, play Alpha.
Guy has radioed ahead for airport security to be ready to deal with the situation on the ground.
Whoa, tunggu. He was taking water off us, he's moving around, seats, disturbing the other passengers. The other passengers were really scared. So with that, we had to turn back. He's got water all down in there.
Bawa trauma gitu ya.
Iya, jadi ngapa itu saya aja, bagasinya tolong itu. Saya nggak jadi lagi.
It's been a rude awakening to the realities of flying in Papua for co-pilot Stjepan.
He seemed completely out of his mind. He wasn't able to comprehend orders, he didn't understand, and he was acting strangely, annoying other passengers. In the end, the guy calmed down, but you never know with these guys. It's not comfortable to sit around someone like that when you're at 10,000 feet up.
George O'Brien, one of Susi Air's most experienced pilots, is checking out whether a new airstrip is fit for use. The Luguat people who built it are said to have cannibalized 2 missionaries in the late 1960s.
It's still got a wee way to go. We're going to call it after one of them.
Unable to land on the strip they'll name after the dead missionaries, George lands on the other side of the valley. Although a day's walk away, the people who live here are part of the same tribe that killed the two men. The evidence suggests cannibalism died out in the 1960s when these areas became more connected to the outside world. But stories still persist. Now he's here, George is keen to find out about the rumors of cannibalism.
Kamu ada orang Papua makan?
Waktu dulu bisa makan juga, tapi sekarang tidak.
Kamu makan orang Papua 30 tahun lama?
Bukan, lebih 60-an tahun sana. 60-an tahun. 64 sekarang seperti begini tidak makan. Tapi nenek moyang kita dengan orang tua kita makan. Anak kecil, waktu kami waktu kecil masuk.
So they're saying that the young people here haven't eaten humans before, but the older people here have definitely.
One of the hunting party who is said to have killed and eaten the missionaries was here when the strip was opened.
And they asked them if white man tasted any different to their own, which they used to eat regularly, and the story goes that he thought they were delicious. So, yeah, we might not hang around here too long.
George is keen to find out more about what happened to the two missionaries. The son of one of the men still lives in a neighboring village. He was a child when his dad met a brutal end, but stayed on to continue his missionary work.
So you know that your father was cannibalized after he was killed?
Most definitely, both Phil and Dad were cannibalized. People from Lolat, the warriors from Lolat, they followed them through until they were well out of their own village area before they took up the attack against them.
Cannibalism was pretty rife in this whole area back in those days. Was that their belief?
The whole of the Barlim Valley was really Cannibal Valley, right the whole way. You know, you didn't want to be invited to a feast. You might be the centre of that feast.
Yeah, because I've heard from a few people that it still does possibly happen, in some of the remote sort of south coast locations, out in the flatlands. And
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me that it still happens.
Been pretty sobering meeting Wesley. It's a bit of a reality check when you hear all these stories. It just goes to show what a different environment this is. Yeah, this place is a long way from the rest of the developed world.
With a high number of aviation fatalities in Indonesia, there are plane wreckages scattered across the land. In Numfor, mountain pilot Robin has safely delivered some passengers. But he's keen to investigate the ingenious way some locals have used the debris from a plane crash.
I've never actually seen it myself, but I've been told that it's down across there over by the beach. So let's see what we can find.
Robin has been living and flying in Indonesia for 2 years after leaving his job as a plumber in the UK, and adapting to the culture has been an eye-opener.
It's great to sort of see some of the villages we go into, some of the tribes that we see, the people we see. Yeah, it's a fantastic experience. Di mana pesawat? Di mana pesawat? It's there. Okay, thank you. Oh, there it is. It is American. There's not much of it left, is there? I was expecting engines and wings and stuff. Selamat siang. I wonder what these panels are. Do you think they're off the tailplane?
It's got a curvature and that little cut, it's like the root of the wing.
It's rumoured that a local woman lives inside this old aircraft, and Robin is keen to take a closer look.
What's on this one?
I don't know. I haven't seen the door yet. It looks more like a missile than an aeroplane, doesn't it? It looks like the barbecue area. That's amazing. She lives on sand inside an aeroplane fuselage.
Ada orang. Oh, It's your house.
Yeah.
It's out.
Saya masuk di rumah? Ya, terima kasih.
Di dalam tidak dipakai lagi.
Tidak dipakai.
Oh, wow. Let's take a photo. Is that okay? Yeah. Terima kasih. Kamu tinggal di sini?
Iya, dulunya belum ada rumah jadi gunakan jadi rumah untuk tempat tidur. Tinggal, iya.
Did it just wash up, you know, or doing?
My Bahasa is not.
Crashed somewhere. He's saying they lost the wings, the engines and wings wherever it crashed. So, but I don't. But how did it end up here?
Yeah, how did it crash? I don't know. My Bahasa is not good enough to find that one out, unfortunately. Terima kasih banyak. Bye-bye. A lot of my friends are envious, I think, of my lifestyle out here and the experiences I have here. But yeah, I update them every time I go back to the UK. It's a topic of conversation when we go down the pub for a beer. It's sort of undiscovered, really. And our flying, luckily, it takes us into the jungle, into places where you still see tribespeople, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant being out here. So it's a lifetime experience. Why do I always look miserable?
For some Susi Air pilots, the job is a stepping stone. But for Robin, it's a different matter.
I'm enjoying myself out here. You know, I think you're very lucky if you can enjoy your job. If you can enjoy your job, you get paid for doing something you enjoy. You know, why change it?
"25-year-old Sam Quinn is preparing to fly the 60 miles from Tomika to Nabia, one of the most challenging landing strips in the whole of Papua. Nabia is set into a deep valley. The tall mountains can cause strong winds to build, and there is often turbulence and downdrafts on the final approach to the strip. Just 400 meters long, it's one of the shortest strips in the world. The Susi Air ground crew are in charge of ensuring the planes aren't dangerously overloaded.
Yeah, for passengers and more some cargos, and they nearly put wrong cargo inside. And if they put it, we will be crashed.
So just signed the manifest. It's got 758 kilos. You just need to watch out for the tailwinds on this one. The strip is a little bit, it's known for its gusty wind conditions and everything like that. So we just need to make sure we don't have a high tailwind going in. Otherwise, we're just going to have to come back.
This strip is a big test for Sam, who only has a few months' experience of flying in Papua.
We're just approaching overhead the strip. I'm just going to slow down to 90 knots, just to have a good look at it.
Sam has to make a pass to check for any dangers on the runway. In 2011, Susi Air had a fatal crash because a man walked out in front of a plane as it was landing.
At the side of the strip, just looks like there's a few puddles, but should be no ice. We're just going to shoot an approach. Really strong headwind here. Full power.
Buffeted by downdrafts, pushing the plane downwards towards the ground, Sam has to make critical decisions. Too little power and he'll hit the mountain too early. Too much and he won't be able to slow down in time. Sam has to fight to keep control of the plane. was a close call, but Sam safely delivered the passengers and the villagers' supplies.
Okay, hard pumping. You committed then? Yeah, I was committed. I can turn left or right.
Basically, wind just pushing us down, and I just more or less nearly had full power on there just to try and maintain altitude, and it was just kept on pushing us down and down and down. That was a bit of a sketchy one. Okay.
Sam's proved himself capable of making the right call in the most testing circumstances.
I had my experience now. That was probably one of the sketchiest moments I've had, really. I've only been in Papua for 3 months now, and it's just finding out these things when you're out here. It's just a steep learning curve.
Today, solo pilot Matt Dearden is making the journey with an aircraft packed full of rice and local Moni people.
At school, I was the kind of geeky kid, you know, always on the computers, and to now be out here in this like paradise, basically, flying $2 million aircraft into the mountains and getting paid for it. I mean, I wouldn't even have imagined it when I was a kid at school. And I suspect if any of my teachers are looking back at school now, they probably wouldn't have imagined that either. They would have probably imagined me sitting, as I was, in a 9-to-5 IT job in Bristol.
Don't sink.
To land safely on the sloping airstrip at Pogapa, Matt has to slow the plane whilst battling the heavy tailwinds, whipped up from the low valley to the left of the strip. But slow too much too soon, he risks stalling the plane and landing heavily. He doesn't want to end up the third crash on this strip.
When you see a wrecked aircraft, it does bring it home, the risks out here, and you know, if you get it a bit wrong, it could be the last thing you get wrong.
This is an awful approach. Very windy at the moment.
Stall.
He touches down heavily on the rough surface.
Oh, we've broken a mudguard.
But Matt and the rest of the plane are intact.
Yeah, that was a horrible approach, mate. Horrible.
Pogapa is a small mountain village of 400 Moni tribal people. But Matt isn't the only Westerner here. 62-year-old American John Cutt moved out to Papua with his parents when he was just a child.
Hi there. Hi.
Matt.
Matt, glad to meet you. My name's John.
John, I've heard of you. I've heard. You're the guy who lives here, right?
Well, I've been here. I've been here since I was 2 years old. Grew up down valley and here and all the way over to Hitaripa, so been around for a long time. This was my first language, the Moni language.
That's fantastic.
Today's an important day in Pogapa. The local Moni people are amassing from the surrounding area to cast their vote in the national elections.
They dance a lot then.
With a keen interest in the tribal people, Matt takes advantage of meeting John to find out more.
They come hooting and hollering and they kind of announce, we've arrived from this village, and then they dance around and everybody listens. This is a group that just showed up, and so now they're saying, we're here, we brought our votes, and take a look at us, you know?
I mean, you certainly wouldn't get anything like that in England. I mean, you know, you vote for Tory or Labour or anything like that, you know, you're not going to be dancing down the streets of London going, Tory, Tory, you know, or anything
Actually,
like that.
I don't know that any of our elections in any of our countries are quite as exuberant and in your face, kind of like here.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
so,
you know, I've never seen anything like it.
There are over 2,000 Moni people living in the surrounding mountains. Although contact with the outside world has provided them with resources they would never have had access to otherwise, for many, hunting with bows and arrows is still an essential part of their way of life. But some of the arrows are not for hunting animals.
He says, we made this one for people.
Oh, that's purely for people.
And for war. They have very blunt ones that just have a blunt end on it here. That's to to stun a bird, like a bird of paradise. You don't want to get blood on it, and so you just want to stun it. Okay. And then they've actually got these with barbs on them. They do that for the marsupials, what they call couscous. Marsupials, it goes in, and then the marsupial has hands, and it can actually pull it out.
Oh, okay,
and so
okay,
if they use one of these, it'll just pull it out and keep on going. Whereas when it's got the barbs on, it's stuck in there.
It's stuck in, and then that's it. Yeah.
Constantly, every day, while you're out walking around the villages, hunting and stuff, they're shooting at stuff, practicing. Usi, ziopa, ziopa, ziopa. Wai, biaba. Komene, komene. Daye.
Pressure's on.
I know.
I feel for him.
Oh,
Straight in.
He says, you see that animal? It's rolling over.
There you go. That was a good shot, and it's gone right on the ground there.
While the men run the risk of being speared by an arrow in battle, ancient custom dictates that women must make their own sacrifice for their loved ones.
It's part of their culture. When a close relative dies, they actually take it off at the second knuckle. Many times it's their kids that they're cutting their fingers off for. She said, this was my dad. And she said, this was one of my sons. I took my finger off for that.
That's just
astounding. It is. What they used to do is they would take the finger and they would put a little hole in it and they would hang it around their neck. So they literally were carrying a dried finger around their neck for 2 or 3 or 4 years later. And it would be, you would see people with these fingers dangling on their neck, and you would know that that was their reminder of their relative that passed away. Yeah. He says, when we're cutting our finger off, people have to be holding us because it hurts so much. The people are holding us. Yeah. Yeah.
Away we go.
For Matt, learning about other ways of life in Indonesia is an exhilarating experience.
You know, I've probably learned more than I've learned in the last year and a half out here flying in Papua. I mean, that's what makes life out here just so interesting, you know. It's one of the world's last true wildernesses, you know, with some seriously unique people and unique ways of living. As pilots here, it's just, really lucky guys. I love it. Love my job. Love my life.
Matt and nearly 200 other Susi Air pilots continue to live out their dreams, flying in the deadly skies of Indonesia.
It's a fantastic place to be sort of fulfilling that dream, really.
You risk your life with this job every single day.
Once you think you know everything in aviation, that's when you're going to kill yourself because you never stop learning.